Good morning. I'm out in Dorset and today I'm going to be jumping in the jacuzzi and talking to you about Edmund Burke's reflections on the revolution in France. So, here we go. Let's see if I can set up my phone somewhere. Okay, so we're working with a folio edition of the book. It comes in a beautiful slipcase. See, I've had to keep the post-it notes down to a lower size so that they'll still fit in the slipcase. We got, I don't know if that's, Edmund Burke's Reflections in the Revolution in France. It's got the most beautiful gold patterning on it. There's Burke. So some beautiful artwork. Let's crack into talking about the book itself. So the book was written as a letter in 1795, and as soon as you get into it you'll find that it has no chapters and it's just one long message. Burke's basically commenting on the fact that, in his own words, France has been brought to poverty by crime. So I'm going to read a little bit of Burke describing the nature of the reformers after their violent means of revolution. So I think it's fascinating to note how communistic this revolution sounds, despite the fact that it was a long time before Marx had published anything and it had been noted. So he says, they portion the lands of France, proceeding by square measurement, into 1,720 districts called communes. These primary assemblies of the canton elect deputies to the communes, one for every 200 qualified inhabitants. The scheme itself is fundamentally vicious and absurd. So this sounds to me like the genesis of communism and where it gained its name. Now, one of the most impressive parts of this book to me is the critiques that Edmund Burke makes on the left of the time, which are such common critiques now, but they were put so succinctly and so perfectly at the time that, you know, I just have to repeat it and read it. So he says, you think you are combating prejudice, but you are at war with nature. I think that one's great. All of these freedom fighters, social justice warriors, they're at war with natural law. It's just a fact. He says, all men have equal rights, but not to equal things. Not rights to equal things. That's good. That's good. I love this. And the last one. And believe me, sir, those who attempt to level never equalize. That's excellent as well. You know, that's like critique of communism 101. Believe me, sir, those who attempt to level never equalize. You've got that Margaret Thatcher moment where she's explaining in Parliament that, in fact, I'll just drop a clip in here.
What the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That is the liberal policy. Yes, it came out.
So yeah, great stuff. Edmund Burke was hitting the nail on the head early on. So much of this is a response to a certain set of individuals who were concocting subversive doctrines in a place called the Old Jewry, which was a meeting house in London. One of the key individuals that Burke talks about is a Richard Price. So I'll read a couple things about him here, and I'll include the sources. So Richard Price was known as Britain's first left-wing intellectual. He's known as a dangerous radical who seek to make the public universally benevolent. He was an international merchant, and at one stage he even sought to get his hands on the national debt. He was whispering into the ears of bigwigs worldwide.
He becomes the founder of the insurance industry, and I'm sorry to say that Americans have almost forgotten who he was, because he was a friend of almost every one of our founding fathers. Great supporter of the American Revolution. He was given a code name to send secrets to the Continental Congress. He was such a friend of ours.
So is probably in a large way responsible for the state of the world today. He saw religious liberty, and for what? Maybe due to his own religious beliefs, denying the Holy Trinity and the divinity of Christ, and not believing in sin or hell. An interesting individual right there, I would say. Throughout the book, Burke lambasts these individuals and falsifies their claims. There's one part here where he talks about liberty. He says, "What is liberty without wisdom and without virtue? Is it the greatest of all possible evils? For it is folly, vice and madness, without tuition or restraint. Those who know what virtuous liberty is cannot bear to see it disgraced by incapable heads on the account of their having high-sounding words in their mouths." But he wasn't only shocked and appalled by the instigators of this chaos, but also by the Frenchmen that allowed it to happen. So here's what he says. "It is now 17 years since I saw the Queen of France. Little did I dream that I should have lived to see such disasters fallen upon her, in a nation of gallant men, in a nation of men of honour and of cavaliers. I thought 10,000 swords must have leaped from their scabbards to avenge even a look that threatened her with insult. But the age of chivalry is gone, and the glory of Europe is extinguished forever. The unbought grace of life, the cheap defence of nations, the nurse of manly sentiment and heroic enterprise is gone. It is gone, that sensibility of principle, that chastity of honour, which inspired courage, whilst it mitigated ferocity, which ennobled whatever it touched." That's powerful. Now, on an ending note, it isn't just highlighting problems that Burke engages in. He also rises to the defence of our old institutions, capitalism, superstition, the English people and their ways, and he also makes an amazing defence of prejudice that I really enjoyed. So I'll end on that, Burke's defence of prejudice itself. "I am bold enough to confess that instead of casting away all our old prejudices, we cherish them to a very considerable degree, and to take more shame to ourselves, we cherish them because they are prejudices, and the longer they have lasted, and the more generally they have prevailed, the more we cherish them. Prejudice is of ready application in the emergency. Prejudice renders a man's virtue his habit, and not a series of unconnected acts. Through just prejudice, his duty becomes a part of his nature." Great stuff.